Good afternoon. Welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A. Today is November 30th, and my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm in charge of customer success here at Alpha Software, and I'm joined today by Dion McCormick, who's going to be showing you guys a lot of cool things you can do with the SQL tools in Alpha Anywhere. However, before we get into that, while Dion's still getting a little bit set up here, we want to know from you anything that you're interested in learning more about, or a question you might have about how to use something. So if you could type that into the questions panel of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll take a look through that and answer a few of those here right before we start, or quickly after. And Dion, are you there?
Yes, I am. Are you hearing me? I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think everyone can hear us.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, I will not yell.
Yeah, a little bit, it's been a while since I've been in one of these, so I feel out of practice. But yeah, welcome everyone. I hope everyone had a good holiday.
Yeah, it was wonderful for me. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. That was a great time.
Yeah, last week was Thanksgiving here in the United States, and hopefully everybody who participates in that holiday had a good time, was able to spend some time with friends or family or people you love. And then outside of the US, I hope you guys all had a great week as well. This looks like we have some questions coming in here.
Good, awesome. Yeah, we're kind of changing it up today.
Yep, just mixing it up a little bit. Oh, the questions are hard today, Dion.
Oh, man.
So I know all of you guys have been very, very interested in the Viewbox control. You've been getting lots of questions and support. You've been talking about it on the forums, so it's not a surprise here that we actually have a Viewbox question. And Dion,
sure, I love Viewboxes. I use them a lot, so.
Yeah, you do. So you might be the perfect person to answer this question. Though I will admit I'm a little bit confused about it. I don't know what is meant by this, but this person wants to know, how do you turn a Viewbox control into a JavaScript object? And then how do you access the row data? I think what they're asking is, how do you get the Viewbox JavaScript control so that you can call methods on it? Is that,
okay.
if they could clarify that, is that what is being asked? Yes, that is what is being asked. All right. Well, actually, that's
okay.
Then it is.
Yeah, okay. I think I know what it's talking about, because when you do custom controls and stuff like that, you can embed JavaScript in it and then call stuff within it. I'm going to give it a shot. There's no guarantees that I'm able to do it, but
the Viewbox itself also has methods. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and there's a good one here asking about SQL database stuff, so we can address that during your
perfect.
Your demo,
outstanding.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and share my screen.
I will make you a presenter.
There we go.
Yep.
Dynamite.
There we
Dynamite.
Go.
Okay.
All right.
Let's jump back over. Create a new UX. Get the ball started. Done. So I just go ahead and put a panel card in there. And then in the panel card, I'm going to go ahead and put a view box. So remember, to do add control, you just go view, click add control and go there for the new folks. One thing that's nice too is that if you find a view box control and you tend to use that a lot, you can right on it and say add to favorites, and now it shows up here. And so there's common controls you use all the time. So instead of digging them out, you just click and there's the control right there. So we'll put this in there. Okay. Now, view boxes, there's, let's see, Viewbox. We can populate from table and stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and click OK and go into here. And what is nice too, they have sample view boxes. So to accelerate this, and by the way, for people who are new to the view box, it's insanely powerful. But sometimes it's a little hard to get your head wrapped around. So examples are very, very handy. So when you create a view box, you'll see two things. One is click for more information about the Viewbox control. And this will open up a web page that really goes into all the documentation on how to use that view box. It's very extensive. It's what I used when I started using it. Very, very powerful. So again, you just click here for click for information, but also you can click here and you'll see there are a ton of cool built-in sample view boxes that you can use. Some that are very advanced, including details and all this other stuff, and simple ones also, which is very, very cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and click list of states. And what this will automatically do is set up your data source, put in some information in there, set some other fields and the layout, and then you can go ahead and go in and look at it. So now if we look at this and do a preview of it, you'll see you have a nice view box. This is mimicking a sort of a selection list kind of item. And you'll notice that when I'm clicking on it, it's actually showing you like, oh yeah, you clicked on NJ or other ones here. Yeah, you clicked on NJ, that's what it is. Let's try MT, etc. And so you can go in, and what's nice is you can analyze this and look at, okay, well, how does it do this information? How did it put that alert up there on that information that are associated with it? So one thing I wanted to show was there's a lot of built-in functionality of it, but you can do a lot of things to extend the capability of a view box in terms of adding your own code, your other pieces, etc., that are associated with it. So I'm using, in this case, some static JSON, but you can do some other elements from there. But now that you've done that, there are a lot of ways to interact with it. So let me go ahead and put in a button here. And we'll go ahead and show you where you find the information. So in here on this button, I want to first show you there's a lot of built-in functionality. So if you click in and use Action JavaScript, you will see that there is a section called Viewbox Control Actions. And since there's so many of them, think of it as like a sub menu of different capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And now you can see there are things like refresh data, select the layout, do refresh, update the template. So these built-in Action JavaScript commands allow you to interact with it and change that view box on there. Things such as populating it, which sets the database for it. If it's already got data already connected to it, you can say, hey, just do a refresh of this. Let's say the backend changed or something like that. One I like a lot is that view boxes can actually have multiple layouts. So you can have a layout for one situation, the other. Instead of having two view boxes, you can have a single one, and then using this Action JavaScript, you can just click and select that and you select there. I've only got one layout in this case, so it's just going to be default, but we can do it from there. So again, those are in the Action JavaScript, but also within here is the ability to also keep hitting there. I'm sorry. A method, there are a number of Viewbox JavaScript commands. So very similar to what you saw with Action JavaScript, you can do the set layout, and you'll see it's got the documentation here, and it's also got example code. You can do things like refresh, populate data, set value, and other pieces from there. Often it's much easier for you to use the Action JavaScript versus going in and do it here. But in this, you can do a lot of other things, and you can wrap other code around it and do other things that are very important from that standpoint there. Now, the individual was asking, just to clarify, on a view box here, let me go to properties. Let me search. Let's see, class, line advanced. I think you can add. This
Oh, are you
shows you
looking
the
for the
JavaScript
tab?
Yeah. Am I missing
go back
that?
to home.
Okay. Oh yeah.
You got to turn it on. Yep.
There we go. Okay, that's what I was missing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So in here, you'll notice that up here are your tabs to control the data in there. but you can click here and it opens up a whole new tab that allows you to insert JavaScript on this item here. So let's just create a little piece of JavaScript. Now, this is used for two parts. One is that when you do custom controls, which are view boxes that have been saved, you can essentially extend, I showed you those different commands for a view box, such as populate, select layout, etc. But you can actually extend it to do some really cool things. So I'm going to say function say hello, and I'll go alert hello, and then close it. So you'll notice here that I'm just creating a static function here, but this can actually update and reference data within here. So there's some really very, very powerful things that you can do within that from that standpoint, but I'm going to go ahead and set that there. So now what I can do is Viewbox test. I think, if I'm not mistaken, on my button, I can do VB_test dot say hello. I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to guess this is it. So basically I'm referencing the control. and oh, is it going to blow up in my face? Let's see what happens here.
We'll see.
Nope, that one didn't work on that one. So I know you can call the JavaScript on that control. Oh, duh, I know what it's got to do. Duh. Okay, let me take a step back. Sloppy. Okay, so I need to get what's called a pointer to this control. So the idea is I get a pointer to this. So if I use the word VB test, that's in design mode. When it actually gets published out onto the websites and in your apps, etc., behind the scenes, Alpha renames everything because it has to control and manage all those pieces. So what we want to do is get a pointer to the object. I believe it's this right here. So let's go ahead and what this does is that it says, hey, get me a pointer there. I don't care what it's named, but when it's running, give me a pointer. And then once I have that pointer, I can then interact with that item from that standpoint. So I'm just going to copy this example and put here. And I'll go ahead and get rid of these items here. Okay. So you'll see that I have this thing saying get pointer. And then in here, I can then say, get a pointer to VB test. So now, and I can call this anything I want. I can call it var VB test, etc. So now that I have a pointer to that, I believe now I can go say hello, or there's if any other commands that are available on VB tests. Let's give this a try. See if it works this time. Let's save this before it blows up. So Viewbox. Let's see what happens here. Nope, still not there. I must have missed a step. So we got VB test.
If I may.
Yes, please. No, jump on in.
All right. So let's go back to your Viewbox. It's been a while since either of us have worked with this control and this type of detail, so I'm not going to fault you. But say hello here on the JavaScript defined specifically for this control. This will be declared in the global scope. So calling say hello in this context will just be say hello.
Ooh,
if you want to call it as a method on the Viewbox,
that's kind of how I was going.
Is this? Yeah. So if we go back in there, you see those three little radio buttons at the top there, where it says JavaScript defined specifically for this control, defined at the component level in this object. What you're looking for is this object. So if you click on that, here's where you'll add that function, and it will be say hello will then be a method on the object itself, which you will then need to use get control to get the Viewbox object.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's just go like there. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. And then by the way, you can give it arguments, etc., which is kind of nice. So you can pass data in, I can then interact with it there. So I now have something called hello world, which is part of the local namespace. So now if we go back here, we can say hello. And in fact, let me do this. I'm just going to say hello. So this should trigger in the other. So let's give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
So we should see two pop-ups first. Gotcha. So when I defined it there, it actually put it on the UX level. So it's at the higher level. But now I click OK and see that one. Let me get rid of it.
Go back and look again. I think you used get pointer. You need to use get control for that one.
I see.
Yeah, get pointer will get the HTML object representing the viewbox. Get control gets the viewbox object
itself.
Yes.
And then I have to put it in there. Yeah, because I'm calling a method on a control versus, like, for instance, get pointer would be to say, and also this is wrong. It's got to be there. Doing too much XBasic these days. Get control would be like change the color of a text field or something along those lines. Okay. And I guess we could show that real quick. Go ahead and just make sure this works now. Yep, there's hello world.
There we go.
Okay, so let's do a real quick recap. If you go to JavaScript and you go to define this, this will be placed at the UX level, so you'd actually have to explicitly call, I think it's equivalent to putting it over here, JavaScript functions, but then this object actually embeds it in there. And what's kind of nice about this is this code goes with it. So if I copy this object, paste it to a different UX, it's going to carry this stuff along with it from that standpoint there. Let's do that real quick. Since we're here, let's go ahead and put a text box. Okay, and we'll call this test. Okay, then I'm going to add another button here. Okay. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to go, but I'm going to go dot object dot get pointer to test. And then I can say, text box equal to, and then I believe we can go text box dot, actually, let me, you know what, better way to do this, good thing is do insert component method, get pointer, copy example. This will be a little bit better. So I'm going to get the get pointer to that test function there. And let us go ahead. Okay. Bear with me. So I'm going to say get test label. And this is very powerful how this works. Okay. So you'll notice what I'm doing is, and when you get pointer, you're getting a pointer to the control itself and then an element of that control. So a part of that. It doesn't have like a lookup on that. So you probably have to use that. Okay. So let's go ahead and first, let's go to this test and I'm going to set the label to my test. Okay. Give this a try here. Good question, by the way. Where is it not showing? Oh, you know what? I think I have to go in here and say position left. There, now that label wasn't showing up. Okay. And notice that when I clicked here, what it did is it got a pointer to this control, but specifically to the label part of it, and then it set that value. And this is actually very, very powerful because you can do things on the fly fairly readily using this. Like, so if you want to change the, like, you know, for whatever reason, you can change the color, the content, a whole bunch of things. So anything you can do with it, this is an HTML control. So you can modify that by saying, get a pointer to there, but then get a pointer to what's called the part of it, which could be the label, the any number of different things, the contents of it, etc., the coloring, etc. And then once you have that, you can then set the value of that pointer using standard kind of, in this case, for instance, inner HTML is part, it gets it's a HTML designator to do that. So you can do some very, very cool, fancy things that may not be in the system by just getting a pointer to an item there. In terms of this, and just to be clear, we didn't get a pointer because I want actually get access to this control to be able to then execute the JavaScript that we added to that control. So those kind of pieces there. So the difference between get control and get pointer is important. Pointer is more of an HTML reference, and then get control is actually more of an alpha issue of then exercising that. So we may want to check with the individual who asked that. Does that give them a pointer, or give them some pointers to, no pun intended, to figure out how to do what they would like to do? I know,
Yes,
it's like,
so I think we've answered half their questions so far. So the follow-up to that is, how do you access the underlying data that's actually in the Viewbox?
Good point.
Yes,
And do they want to read it, or they want to modify the data?
They want to read through it and do some manipulation. And the best place to get that information, actually, and I've been dumping links in the chat as we've been talking, but one of them is for the Viewbox object methods. And in addition to having functions you can call, the Viewbox does have a data property, or I guess they're incorrectly classified as arguments in doc. But once you get a pointer, or not a pointer, once you get that Viewbox object with get control, you can then reference its data property. So if you go back into that button.
Okay, let's do this. Actually, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it below it. Oh, by the way, shortcut, you right click on it. You can say copy that control or duplicate it. In fact, I'll just duplicate it.
I love duplicate. I use it all the time.
Yeah, duplicate saves so much time.
Just select a bunch of stuff, Control D, done.
Done. End of story. And we'll call it data. Okay, so works similar to that point is that we're going to get a pointer of the object.
Right.
But then.
So if you can reference it here, it's not going to be in the Yoast component methods, unfortunately.
No, not in the methods. Okay.
No, it's not in there. So if you do something like an alert and then vbtest.data, all lowercase, which it's going to say object. So if you want to wrap that in a JSON stringify, are you familiar with that one?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, nope.
Forget it fit.
No, this is a vanilla JavaScript. Let me Google the syntax for you real quick.
Yeah, no, I'll look that real quick.
Yeah. It's all caps.
Yeah, yeah.
This is in the chat for folks who don't know about this. This is a lovely function. And all that will do is just convert that data object into a string so that when the alert is shown, you can read the text in it, versus not doing that. It will just show the text object in brackets, indicating that the thing you tried to print to the screen is an object and it didn't know what to do with it.
And if you get in there, once you get that object, like, what I would probably do is something like this. I'd say the data is equal to vb_test.data. Then you can do for loops, each loops, etc., inside of JavaScript to do all those kind of pieces there. So let's give that a try.
Yeah.
It likes it in an object format. Yep. So you can see now. Thank you very much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
That it gets you. Basically, this is a what comes back, which is an array, JSON array of this information of each of the states that are in there, that data there. And then you can use this, then you can loop through it and then set that data using the built-in methods to set the data.
Yep. So just be aware, if your Viewbox if your data for your Viewbox is an array, if that's how it's been set up, you'll get an array back. But if you've just set it up as a simple object with a few properties, you're just going to have an object with a few properties. So for anybody who's looking to work with your Viewbox data, make sure to just double check what format it's going to give you back before you start assuming things like an array or an object.
Let me do something real quick. I just want to show and why we put in the stringify. If we don't, what it would look like, which could be confusing for people. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that was an array, so it knows how to handle an array. If you had something more complex, like a nested JSON object,
yeah,
it would just say object.
Object. So,
yep.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to save this back.
All right. So I think that I think we've answered that question now.
Okay, no, it was a good question. Kind of went down the rabbit hole, but actually, I learned my stuff.
So yeah, if you want, I understand you had some stuff you wanted to show us with SQL today too. So, and this other question is semi-related. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you had.
Cool. Obviously, the bulk of people's work with Alpha is interacting with SQL databases, either local on the server or remotely, etc. And there obviously all the controls, etc., have built-in SQL, like starting with the grid. You can connect and it will automatically inspect SQL. But what I've been working with lately is that sometimes you got to kind of work on the SQL database itself. Now, obviously, I use a tool called Navigav Personally to do a lot of database-oriented work, just because it's a good tool. It works very well. But sometimes you want to do some quick things and you don't want to really leave the development environment. So built into Alpha are a number of tools to build databases, modify them, transfer them, do a whole bunch of little, like, kind of call them administrivia kind of actions within the system from there. So what I want to do is just do a quick review of a couple of the cool little tools that are in here so that you guys are aware of these tools that are available in case you want to go. And again, there's a lot of great third-party tools that are out there to just manage pure SQL, but it's nice to have some of these features built into the system from here. So obviously we always start with Alpha DAO connection string. This is where you define connection strings. I've actually automatically generated, let me delete that. You see, I can create a little quick sample database, and I'll use SQL Light, and I'll create a connection string. I'll make a clean copy. So I have something to play with. So I've already kind of got a built-in little sample Northwinds database that's available from there. So we always start with the idea of you need to have connection strings to basically tell Alpha where and what type of database and any security elements that are associated with it within the system, which is pretty nice. Once I've got that, that unlocks a whole lot of SQL tools that are built into it. And you're going to find them in two different places. One under Tools. You can see there are a number of things here. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. And then also, if you click here on SQL, you'll also see a subset of those tools here that are focused on. So I'm going to really spend my time here, but just to let you know, they kind of put that menu here with a lot of the things that are here. So let's walk through these really quick. So first is Database Explorer. Database Explorer basically allows you to kind of quickly view and walk through your database, see the structure, really simple. Now, notice something, when I open it up, it has something called local tables. Well, this is a sort of a leftover from the desktop days with local DBFs. And so if you happen to have an old solution with DBFs, they'll show here. If not, then you'll probably see here where it's kind of basically empty from that standpoint here. To actually add your connection string in there, you click plus, it brings up here, and then I select one of the connection strings, and now I can add that to my Explorer. Now, the nice thing is, once I've done that and I go into Database Explorer, it remembers that. So you don't have to redo that. But let me go ahead and open this up. And now you can see I can kind of scan through and look at the table structure and the data that, the columns that are associated with a specific table. So it's just nice, like if you just want to look up and see what's in your test, find like a name of it. This is persistent, so it can stay open while you're doing other things within the system. So it's kind of nice to be able to have that available. And this will include both tables and views and things that are in your system from there. Now, another neat little feature of this is when I'm in here, I can actually work with this database. Got to be a little careful. But like, for instance, I could literally drop this table and delete it out of the database. And that's going to punch through right to the SQL data source and do it. But you can also do things like show the data in the table. So you can do a quick inspection and see what the information is in that table. And again, that's accessed by clicking on an element within my tree and right-clicking on it and there. And I can count the rows. Oh, it's got 91 rows there. So just kind of some nice little things here. Now, I'm going to come back to this, but you can also open a query builder to set up a query against this table. You can also do layouts right here. So instead of going over here and selecting it here and doing it, you can just quick and dirty say, hey, you know what? I need a new report. So for this table, so I click report and it would take me through those pieces here. This is old. This is save as a DBF or a link. Really was the desktop days. So not something you're probably going to work with or explore in these days from here. One other thing that's kind of cool too, and this is more of a geeky thing, and again, other tools such as Navigav has it, but I can actually go here and say, you know what? I want to get and build an update statement. And so this literally, which is kind of cool, it actually writes code right here to be able to do that. So you can see how that works from there. And again, this is a bit kind of old school. I would probably use something like Navigav, but it does, I guess this is more desktop kind of stuff from the old school from that standpoint. So I thought it was SQL. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, this is how you would create this table using SQL. Let me look at that again. Let me do a SQL insert statement. Yep, that's right. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it is valid because basically it's writing a SQL statement where you can see here the fields, and these are called arguments. So you would pass those in as arguments. It's designated by there. So, and you can save this and copy it. So if you have to do some manipulations kind of things there, it's kind of handy to have that in there to generate it from that standpoint. So that's the Database Explorer. Again, you need to add the information or the actual, database and put it in there from there. So let's go through the next one here. So we've got the Explorer, but we also have the SQL command window. And this is if you're really geeky in terms of doing SQL stuff. You're like, I'm old school. I need a command line interface. So as you can see, if you have one or more connections, you can select those from here. And then what I can do is go in here and say, select star from customers and execute that SQL, and it happens right here. So where customer, I think it's not, ID is equal to half key. So you kind of got to know SQL, but kind of nice. You can just kind of test and place some stuff there, and then you can copy out from here. And it actually has a history of it. So as you do these different things, it remembers it. So if you go, oh, it worked a couple times back, let me go get that one and be able to reload it from there. It's kind of handy there. Now, one thing that also is kind of cool here is let me go ahead and just put this customer ID right here. If you go insert and then go to tables, customers, customer ID, it actually inserts the actual name here. And again, probably faster if you're doing there, but it helps you build those commands using the proper naming and other pieces from there. This is just handy in there, especially if you just want to do a couple quick like queries on your database table. You're familiar and comfortable with SQL, you're good to go. That's kind of a handy dandy kind of capability to do there. So that is let me go back here, the SQL command editor. Now this one I actually find is a lot more powerful because it doesn't depend on your ability to understand SQL and how those pieces go. It's called the SQL Query Editor. So very similar to what you saw here, but this will actually walk you through building a query, which is kind of handy when you're doing a little more fancy stuff, and we'll show an example here. So you can see up top, again, I can select which connection string, then there's a series of buttons here. So let's go ahead and click Add Table. So I'll go ahead and click Customers. And notice I can show views, everything else here. Okay. Now notice what it's doing here. It creates a graphical representation up top, but down below, it creates the actual SQL for you. So I don't have to know SQL. So then I can say, as I did before, execute query. It will run what's in here and go from here. Now I can edit this directly, or I can say, you know what? I want to only get a couple columns from this. So I'm going to click here on columns. You'll notice that it's all columns, so I'm going to get rid of it, but I just want the customer ID, company name, and contact name. So again, if you're familiar building grids and lists, very much similar kind of interface from here. So I'll execute there. And now you'll see it built my new SQL here, and it actually allows me to test it out here. So it allows me to do some fancy stuff here. And over here, you can change some other items here in terms of sorting them. So let's say we want to sort on contact name. So I can actually go over here and say, you know what? I want to sort this on contact name. And you'll notice that it built my order by clause, which is the SQL for do it, and I'll execute it. And you'll notice now, oh, the contact name is working from here. Now, as I go through here, when I'm happy to go, I can copy this to a clipboard. Now I have that SQL, and I didn't have to go out and learn how to write SQL, which is pretty handy there. There's some more advanced things, like you'll notice I put in an order. So let's say I want to do it by, let's do it by customer ID and then contact name. It's going to create that so that when I do the execute, it's going to first do it by customer ID and then the contact name before it. Another nice thing is the filter builder. And this is actually where it really makes your life a lot nicer. And so I can actually come in here and start building filters. So much like I did by hand, I'll do it from here. So the column I'm going to do, so I'm going to say customer ID is equal to, and then I'll type in here, alpha key. Okay. And you'll notice once I've done that, it puts in my where clause here, execute it. Oh, I screwed up. I actually have to go in here and put in there. And then I can execute that. And now I have it here. Now, cool in here is that you'll see I have all these different items or sort of potential SQL commands, and some are a little more complicated than others. So it's kind of nice to have this in here to help build it for me, like contains or is like, etc. The other thing I can do is create pretty complicated structures, because I can sit there and say, oh, okay, customer ID is equal to there. I can click here and then say, also I want customer ID is equal to blonde P. Execute that query. Up, notice it's saying and here. So it's building my where clause. If I go over here, I can say, oh, what it did is it made, when I went here, notice this over here. So let me redo that here. Okay, back to where I was. So if I execute this, you're going to see something. It says, oh, I don't find any result, because notice it's saying and. It's saying it has to be, well, it can't be both. So I can go up here and say, or it rewrites this and I can execute it. And then now this works because it's or. And by the way, I can create multiple levels. You can create very sophisticated, because I can go in here and create another level here. I can change the and or, and a lot of really fancy stuff here. So this is super handy. If you're not super comfortable with SQL and you're dipping your toe into it, this tool, the SQL Genie, is super duper helpful to help you build these kind of more fancy queries. And then, it does the work for you. You can test it right here, and it's super handy from there. So again, that is, if I go back to my Web Projects control panel on SQL, the SQL Query Genie. So those are kind of like, okay, I've got an existing database. I want to work with it. I want to modify. I want to create queries. I want to look at it. Those are handy there. But we can actually even create our own tables within here. So I don't even have to go into a third-party tool to do this. So I'm going to select my demo Northwind. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of database, we're going to take care of it. So we select that. Then I go into define the table structure. So I'm going to put in here, for instance, ID, and it's going to be of type numeric, and it's going to be a primary key. Then I'm going to add, let's just do something simple. I'll say name last, and then I'll add a field, name first. So I can just sit there and build my piece. If I want to see, this is what it's actually generating, which is SQL for generating that table from there. I can then give it a name. So I'll call it names. And then I can click create table. It's created. So now I can go back into my, let's go ahead and go back into my Database Explorer and look at the tables. And there is my new names screen, our new names table right in there. So I didn't have to go out of the tool. I now have that. Now I can start using that to build grids, lists. I can then interact with it with XBasic, whatever, tie it to a Viewbox, you name it. And that's all built within the system. So it's just a little tool to make life easy for you to be able to do things such as, create tables. Now, couple of little things I want to show you here really nice. One is export and import connection strings. These are, if you have, okay, so you've built a solution with connection strings and there may be one or more, and let's say you want to use those in a different project. Well, that tool right here allows you to export the connection strings and then go to your other system and import it. It's just a little handy thing so you don't have to go through the whole process of rebuilding, because you may have to put in a username, password, all that kind of stuff there. So that's just a handy little sort of utility function where you want to reuse connection strings from one project to the other. It does that there. Now, this one I like, and actually I'm going to have Sarah talk about how she uses this one, but let me go ahead and show you what this is. So it's called Create SQL Light Database. And for folks who are not familiar, SQL Light is really cool. You know, a lot of times people use Access databases, but more and more people are using SQL Light because they're very popular, both with more traditional development environments and more modern ones. Basically, it's a fully almost fully SQL compliant database, but it can run standalone on your machine. It's pretty handy from that standpoint here. So this is where I can actually create a little SQLite database from scratch and be able to handle it, you know, and use that instead of something like Access, and be able to also move that database from environment to environment. So I'm going to call this my test database, and I'll add a table. Let's call this names again. Okay, let's edit that table definition. And we'll do a dim table name. Let's do customers, even though I called it that. Field list, select all. Okay. So basically, I have said, you know, create a table called names. And I probably should, let's edit that and let's call this, instead of that, let's call it customers so it matches. Excuse me. So basically what I'm doing is pulling data from my current database into the SQLite there. I can preview it. You'll see this is what it's pulling. It's pulling all that customer data in there. Okay. Then I can actually have different, I can directly upload this SQLite database up there, often pretty handy, or I can open. So let's go ahead and create that. Database has been created. So basically, when I click that button, it read the data out of my current database and pumped that data into a table within this database. So now if I come in here, you'll notice that I have a new file here called my test database. Is that it? Did I just create that?
Yes.
Did I call it my test database? Yes, okay. I just wanted to make sure I did from that standpoint. This is in a temp location, so it's got a bunch of other stuff, but this is a SQLite database that could be used in SQLite. You could put it up on to, you know, transfer it to people, and it's pretty handy. It's a really nice tool. In fact, you could then access this. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do this. Let's drag that to the desktop. So it's on there. I could actually go to a different machine. I go Tool, SQL Connection Strings. I'm going to add a new one. We'll call it SQL Light is just there. I'm going to build it. It's a, is it file? No, it's SQL Light. Where's SQL Light? There it is. Click OK. I'm going to then go ahead and go to the file name in my case. Don't want to put it on desktop, but I did. So where's my test? There it is. I didn't give it a test it. Yep. Okay, so now I've taken that SQLite database, moved it to another machine. And now if I go ahead and go into my database explorer, I'm going to add that SQLite database because it's not in there yet. Now I can go in there. There's my customers table. You'll see it's already structured. And then I can actually show the data, and that's the data. So it's equivalent to the other, but it's in that one little file. And what's kind of nice is it's very portable. I just can literally email that to someone, and now they have essentially, they can drop it on their system and be able to use it. So I'm going to actually turn it over for a couple minutes to Sari to say how she uses that to help her development process.
All right, yeah. So actually, that's not the one I use, but it's very similar in what we use. So
well,
if
do you want
we
to show
close
yours?
This, now go ahead. I can talk you through it. If you close that down.
Okay.
Yep, and then go to Tools, More, all the way down at the bottom, and then Export from a SQL database to another SQL database.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
So
I'm
you can pick
selecting
this
one.
one. Yep, and then grab your the one you just put on your desktop there.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Desktop.
The my test database. All right. So what you can do here is actually very quickly export data from one SQL database to another one. This one is export database to SQL Light. In that drop-down menu, there was another one that will go between any two SQL databases. You just need to define how to connect to them. And from that, you can export the tables, just the tables, all the tables and the data. That mask data option there at the bottom of this one, that option there. If you contact us, need help with, you're having a problem, we ask you for data, but you don't want certain things to show up in that data, and maybe you have sensitive customer information, you can use mask data to obfuscate that so no one can tell what it is. But this is extremely handy. The place I use this the most is when I'm working with like an Alpha Cloud test database, because sometimes the connection can be very slow up to those test databases from where I'm at. And in a development environment, that can be aggravating while you're working
big
on
time.
it. Yeah, so like I'll keep the cloud test database for like when I deploy to Alpha Cloud and want to test up in the cloud, because you do need a database somewhere that Alpha Cloud can connect to, because we don't host databases on Alpha Cloud itself. But in the development environment, copying that definition down locally into a SQLite database or MySQL or wherever it is that you want to have that, the tool is very very nice to have and to quickly copying things. A quick caveat, it only does tables, so you're not going to get your views. But for people looking to maybe pull some test data down from a production database, maybe you want a local test database you could work with so you're not working with your production information, you can use that tool to do it.
As you can see, it created with it actually was smart enough to put the .db on the back,
put the
which
DB
is what
on
it
that
should
one.
do.
Yep.
But you can also see it dumped a lot more data than that one table, in terms of the information out of my local other one from there. So super cool tool built into it. And in fact, you can explore it and it actually shows you what it exported and information. So all that's built into it from that standpoint, easy to do. So very, very cool. Let's see anything else here. Let's see. This is if you're using SQL Server reporting services, you can connect there, which is really, really powerful. And then again, in terms of SQL, this is more talking about storage connection strings or things like S3 or Azure blobs, et cetera. ADO's older connection string there. But that's what I wanted to kind of cover. As you can see, there are a large number of built-in database tools that make your life easier, where you don't have to use a third-party tool to interact, modify, migrate data within databases right within the Alpha system, which is super duper handy. So with that, I'll open up questions on this or any other questions that you might have. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I think we've covered, there was one here, like how do I transfer data between SQL Light and MySQL? The export data from one database to another is totally going to cover that.
Oh yeah,
for
let
you.
me go ahead and show you
Yeah, under
just what it
tools.
looks like real quick.
Yeah,
More.
that one.
So you can do select source. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'll use my new SQL Lite. That's the smaller one.
Mm-hmm. And so
then
you can explore the target database. You can create a new database if one doesn't exist in your target connection. And then options there. Manage settings. No, doesn't do that. That just opens up where you save.
I think what it is if you're doing this often, you can click Save Settings. And then if you need to do this again, you just click Load Settings, click it, click OK, and it fills out these fields so you don't have to reset them. So if you're doing this on an ongoing basis, let's say you're working with another developer and periodically you're going to send them, update another database with your modifications. Again, other tools may be more effective, but this is built into it here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Copy. Cool. Now if I go to my SQL Explorer, okay, gives me a summary
of what happened.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
And now if I cancel this, if I go back to my Database Explorer, and I'm going to refresh this, and now it shows all that data that got transferred over there. I right click on here, refresh, or here, because it kind of it caches the last time it opened this. So I did the refresh so it'd show all those new tables. So remember, if when in doubt, click refresh, and that will make sure you have a very clear picture of the current table structure within the system.
All right. So that was one question. There's another one actually. And this one really gets more into how do you insert data into a table from a UX component. And this person wants to know if you can insert data into two separate tables at the same time when you do a submit action on the UX.
Yes, you can. So let me go ahead and I'm going to talk to it. I don't think I have a data table that can support it, but let me go ahead and do that. So what you want to do is the ability of the system is actually, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and just to get this started, I'm going to go ahead and add a text box like this, but I'm going to click down here. You'll notice something here, populate list from a table. This allows you to auto-generate a UX for you. So you can select the screen. Let's go ahead and do customers. I'm going to have it do all the binding and everything else from there. So basically that creates all the fields and the buttons. So now you have a fully operational UX that's tied to that table. So it's done all the data binding from the UX to the table. And I can walk through them and you'll see it's changing the data there. So this is handy when you're starting out because you can just look at it from there. Now let me go in here to data binding. And I'm going to go in here to the data binding. So first I can look at the tables here. And you'll notice I only have one table. It's telling you where it is from here. If I go into the controls, this tells you what field gets connected to what column in that database table. Okay. Now what's cool about this is that I can add a second table. And that table can have, if it's a parent-child, it will understand the relationship between a parent and child. And so Alpha can actually has the ability with what's called repeating sections to take parent data and child data and store it at the same time. So that allows you to do that. Alternatively, I believe I can add a new table in here, and I'll just go ahead and do employees here. Yeah, no, it wants the link. So this is about when you're adding a table here, you'll notice it's asking you what link. Is it a one-to-one, one-to-many kind of scenario? So it will handle that parent-child relationship information. It'll actually insert a parent and the child. But to do the children, you're using what's called a repeating section that will bind the table. Now, this is if you are using data binding on a UX. Alternatively, another option you have, let me go ahead and create a UX here, okay, is you can use list controls that have parent-child information. So you can add a list in here. Go ahead and add one list in here real quick. list customers. So I'll go list control. I'll go ahead and select this. Let me see if I can do this really quickly. Customers. Okay. Just do a couple of them there. Click OK. Detail view. And so that's good. That's good enough. So it's going to create my primary list here. I'm still doing that. Getting a little ahead of myself. So it created like a parent-child, or not a parent-child, but it created a list and a detail view. But now what I can also do is I can add another list. Okay. And I'm going to call this list orders. Okay. And I'm going to do the quick setup genie. I'm going to select my there. And then the table I want is orders. Okay. So I've selected orders. And within there, I'm going to select order ID, date, required date. That's good enough from there. But notice in here it has customer ID. So what I can do is actually, let's see, is there parent record? Where do I do that? Notice, yeah. Notice down here it says, oh, I notice you already have another list. Is this a parent list for this? So yeah, I'll go, yeah. Okay, so the parent list is customers. And then it's going to ask me the linking field in the parent list, which is customer ID. And then the linking list in the this one, which is, oh, you know what? I have to make sure I select and include customer ID here. And there I'll select customer ID. Now I want to do one other thing here. I want to have a detail view. Okay. So now what I'm doing is, and I'm going to go ahead and cheat real quick. I'll put a panel card here. And I'll do a panel card here. So it lays it out nicely. Then a panel layout. Okay, and do one other thing. Okay, good. I'm on Alpha Blue too, but I want to use compact. Okay, so I created my parent list and then I created my child list. And now if you do that, notice what's happening. When I click Alpha key, you're going to see my orders are updating in terms of ones. And if I click here, it loads here, and then I can edit it here. So this is a quick way for you to do a parent-child and be able to edit both the parent and the children, as you see in a matter of minutes from there. Now, alternatively, there's no reason to say that you couldn't have two disconnected lists. So what I would do is create the second list and just not tell it has a parent, and then I could edit this data at the same time here. So you could do it either through data bound with a parent-child relationship, or you could use it with list controls with detail views like here. It can either be a parent-child relationship, or it can just be separate lists with detail views to be able to edit it there. So I hope it gave you some pointers there. Worst comes to worst, you could always just go ahead and write XBasic to do that stuff. But obviously this does all the hard work for you, so you don't have to spend your time modifying, writing code and doing other things. Oops.
Oh, no, I'm still here.
I hope that explained it a little bit. Oh, no. I wanted to make sure I didn't drop off or something.
Oh, no, I wasn't fast enough to unmute. Yeah, so
I think that's all our time. Yeah.
Yeah, that is all of our time. Hopefully that answers that question for them. If not, you can always post on the forum. It's a good place to post so that other people can learn from what you are trying to do, or email us at custserv, CUSTSERV @alphasoftware.com, and our support team would be happy to send you a link to documentation.
Indeed.
All right. So yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are running out of time. I would love to ask another question, but I don't think we can answer it in less than 30 seconds. So, yeah. So yes, thank you everyone for being here. Dion will be back next week with Dave, presumably. And I will not be able to attend next week. I am going to be on vacation. But thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you have learned something. Hopefully everybody gets to take something away from these presentations, even when we cover some more basic things. And happy holidays. Thank you, Dion, for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much. Yeah, my pleasure. It was great meeting, or great talking, great questions, and we appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. And we'll catch you next week. Bye.